Hello and welcome to this new HAPPI webinar, Substantiating Sustainability in Personal Care, Giving Consumers a Reason to Believe. I'm Christine Esposito, Managing Editor of HAPPI. Awareness of and interest in sustainability continues to rise across personal care. In fact, despite the COVID-19 upheaval, one survey by Genomatica shows sustainability is a top-of-mind issue for consumers. As we enter the new normal and move forward, personal care companies must continue to elevate their sustainability profiles. Today's webinar is sponsored by Genomatica, maker of Brontide, natural butylene glycol. Genomatica harnesses synthetic biology to develop more sustainable, higher performance ingredients for everyday products by using plants and waste rather than fossil fuels or other non-sustainable sources such as palm oil. In today's session, we will hear from two personal care sustainability experts who will provide data-driven insights on consumer perspectives on sustainability during the COVID-19 pandemic, reinforcing sustainability claims using substantiated ingredients, and strategies for navigating sustainable label claims. Our speakers are Sasha Calder, who is Head of Sustainability at Genomatica, and the EcoWell's Jen Nokovich. Prior to joining Genomatica, Sasha Calder was Director of Sustainability at Beauty Counter, where she led responsible sourcing, sustainable packaging, and climate justice for the Clean Beauty brand. She holds an MA in Responsible Management and Sustainable Economic Development from the United Nations Mandated University for Peace and a BA in Anthropology with a concentration in Finance from the University of California, Santa Cruz. In 2016, Sasha was named Green Business 30 Under 30 list. Jen Nokovich, a skilled science communicator and cosmetic formulator, launched the EcoWell in 2016. She has interviewed hundreds of cosmetic scientists from diverse fields for her podcast series and has launched several larger-scale SciComm conferences, including the EcoWell's Green Beauty Night series, which seeks to bring more science into the conversation about sustainability and personal care. A bit of housekeeping before we begin. Following the main presentation, Sasha and Jen will be answering some questions from the audience, and you can send in your questions as you listen in. If we do not get to your question, the team will follow up after the webinar. There's also a post-event survey. Thank you in advance for your participation in that. And with that, I'm now ready to turn the microphone over to Sasha.
Thanks so much, Christine. I'm thrilled to be here with you and Jen today. And hi, everyone. Sasha Calder, who recently joined Genomatica as the head of sustainability. And I'm so excited to be chatting with you today about the ever-increasing role, responsibility of sustainability in the personal care and beauty space. I'm going to give a bit of a background on Genomatica, who we are and what we do, and why now more than ever, sustainability is critically important for citizens and consumers and how we can offer credible solutions in the marketplace. So Genomatica has been leading the transition to better and more sustainable ingredients for over 20 years now. We make sustainable ingredients out of renewable resources instead of using fossil fuel or petroleum-based products. Our market covers many different verticals and industries, from performance apparel to natural cosmetics, like the butylene glycol Brontide product that we offer, to sustainable packaging, nutrition, health and wellness, and home care and lifestyle brands. So we cover many different verticals, offering solutions and alternatives for a just transition away from fossil fuel-based products to more sustainable materials at scale and available to market. A bit of background: over the 20 years that Genomatica has been around, we are an R&D powerhouse. We've spent over $300 million to date on research and development and designing innovative technologies, methods, processes, and finished products and goods to push sustainability farther. In a 2017 survey of the mainstream chemical industry, we were rated the #1 most sustainable enabling technology. So what Genomatica does really well, and like other biotech firms, we take ideas from ideation phase and we're able to actually produce, scale, commercialize, and bring finished products to market, offering sustainable solutions at scale. And so this past year, like many of you in 2020, our company was sitting here. We're founded around principles of sustainability and trying to maximize our impact for good. And we kept thinking, how has the pandemic impacted ourselves, our neighbors, our consumers, our clients, our partners. For many of you, whether you're a brand or a formulator, a contract manufacturer, or play a role, many of the different hands up and down the supply chain, we wanted to know how important is sustainability given COVID-19 and what are the impacts? So I'm going to walk you through a research study that we conducted. We interviewed over 2,000 participants in the U.S. to understand how important sustainability is, what moves markets, what are some hesitations, and what we found was incredibly compelling for where not only the larger market's going to go, but specifically personal care and beauty. So we asked, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted sustainability? Again, what we found is sustainability has been embraced despite the pandemic in the U.S. So this is no surprise to us. For over a decade, we've been seeing sustainability increasingly important to consumers and policy markets. People are really starting to think differently about how they interact with their environment, with the people around them. Now, I know Jen will be getting into a bit of this, but sustainability can mean many different things. So when we think about sustainability, it's environmental sustainability, energy, water, waste, social impacts, responsible sourcing, human rights impacts up and down supply chains, exposure to potential risks like child labor. How are my products being made? Consumers and neighbors are asking this now more than ever. Also, economic and governance resiliency. How resilient are our supply chains to withstand pandemics like COVID and other natural disasters? So we had this really compelling research that gave us great insight into what's really happening in the market. And what we found through our respondents was over 85% of people are thinking the same amount about sustainability as they were before the pandemic or more. So this is really compelling. So thinking about sustainability is everything from how has my environment been impacted by the pandemic? Am I seeing less cars on the road? Am I thinking differently about my decisions, about who I want to be, how I'm impacting my health and safety, as well as the health and safety of those around me. And so we were really curious about this, like, all right, folks are really thinking about sustainability, and that's great. It's an amazing ideological conversation. We're hearing a lot more about sustainability in the news, but then really what does that look like and how does it translate to actual behaviors in the market? And this one really got us. So 82% are saying they're acting the same amount or more sustainably than they were before the pandemic. And when you really think about this, in a time of crises, to be able to think about not just your future health and safety, but also think about strategically and behave and make choices to protect yourself and the planet moving forward. We were really inspired by this number. And lastly, we asked, how important do you think sustainability is going to be looking forward and moving forward? And what we found is over 86% of people thought sustainability would be just as or maybe more important post-pandemic. And so to us, this really signals that the market is moving quickly. These citizens are also consumers, and they have clear demands for what they want to see post-pandemic and how they want to see brands show up to the conversation. So we found that people want to prioritize sustainability now more than ever. They're asking their brands and manufacturers to prioritize sustainability just as much as other critical areas of bringing products to market. They said they can't wait to be more sustainable again. They're learning new things about what sustainability means, and they want to integrate it into their purchasing decision. And as we're talking about purchasing decisions, we also saw respondents were willing to pay a little bit more for sustainable products. And this really wasn't surprising to us. From research over the past decade, we know that consumers are just as likely to purchase as they are to punish a brand based off of their sustainability performance. Groups like Edelman, Sustainable Brands, Nielsen, and Cone Communications have really compelling data that also similarly shows by breakdown across all demographic groups, the increased desire to purchase, celebrate, and support companies who are committed to reducing their impact and producing the best products possible that protect both people and the planet. So with all of this, we had a really good idea of kind of, we know what's going on in the market. There's a huge demand for sustainability, but what does this really look like as an organization who sells sustainable goods, products with our partners up and down the supply chain? So we asked ourselves, how can personal care companies create more sustainable stories that give consumers this really clear, credible feeling that they're part of the solution for reducing their environmental impacts, and even understanding where existing environmental impacts live in their current products. So to do this, we talk a lot about substantiating sustainability. We're a science-driven company that is committed to data, and we use data to inform our decisions. So I'm going to talk about two tools today. One is called a life cycle assessment, and the other is kind of a larger piece around storytelling about how to position ingredients and substantiate them, and then drive increased engagement and behavior for finished products. So a life cycle assessment is a comparative analysis tool. It allows brands to assess and verify the environmental footprint of their products. So think of it as a comparative tool. For those of you who aren't familiar with life cycle assessments that are often called LCAs, you'll get you can put in multiple different options into creating products. We've seen this a lot in the last few years around beauty and personal care companies talking about how they use LCA software to inspire and design the types of packaging that they produce. Does it make more environmental sense to use a glass jar or an aluminum jar? And what an LCA does is looks at the many steps up the supply chain, all the way from the point of extraction to manufacturing, transportation, production, and then end-of-life use, and whether it's disposed of or recycled, to give the product a number. And we're starting to see the same thing happen in the ingredient space. And at Genomatica and with Brontide, our product, we've been really excited to bring the same rigorous screening process and comparative tools of the life cycle assessment into our formulas and ingredients to be able to show the comparative benefits of using renewable ingredients in comparison to petroleum-based products. So some of the benefits of using LCAs are to improve your overall product's sustainability profile. There's a lot of consumer concern, and for good reason. Companies have been greenwashing and maybe communicating that their products are sustainable without any really verifiable data or substantiation, leaving consumers with a lack of trust and really wanting to put their confidence in a brand or product that can clearly articulate and communicate the type of impact that their ingredients and products are having. So from there, it can also help it can help your manufacturers, your partners, think more strategically about the natural resources that you're using up and down your supply chain. If you're a brand and you're reporting on your environmental footprint, your use, this is a really strategic way to get into the nitty-gritty details to understand where and how your products are impacting the planet. And last but certainly not least is marketing and benchmarking tools for buyers. We're seeing increasingly brands are using and leaning into LCAs to differentiate and position their products as more sustainable, verifiable products on the market, and consumers are responding. And I'm going to walk you through how we measured our impact at Genomatica. We have an internal team, and we also worked with a trusted third-party peer-reviewed group to look at our LCA. We used the ISO 1440 to substantiate and measure our Brontide, our natural butylene glycol sustainability impact, and the story behind it. And what we found, again, is quite compelling. Our natural butylene glycol reduces greenhouse gases in comparison to petroleum-derived butylene glycol by over 50%. So when you're looking at CO2, global warming impact, this type of reduction is incredibly impactful for reducing ingredients performance on your ingredient list. So whether you're a formulator, you're on the brand side, this is really helpful when you start looking at how many different ingredients are going into making a product, and then what is the environmental or social impact of those ingredients. And what our LCA tool does, it's been verified through trusted third parties, it allows us to differentiate that in comparison to petroleum-based products, we're outperforming. And this is really meaningful because we can provide scalable solutions, this incredible performance material at scale with a reduced environmental footprint. And so I talked about the LCA tool, and I'll close out by talking about one other tool for communicating and substantiating sustainability. So as a database company, I encourage you to, if you're not already, look into your internal company to understand where and how your products impact the sustainability profiles of finished goods. From there, look out. There's an incredible amount of research being done in this space. Connect with our Genomatica team, learn about some of the research and development of where the market is going. There's more sustainable ingredients coming to market than ever before. There's more messaging and marketing, but what's really critically important in differentiating your product, your partners' products moving forward is being able to clearly articulate, substantiate, and differentiate your products using this data-based story. So the sustainability impacts from the LCR are really helpful to build up kind of the foundational legs with numbers of how your products are outperforming others. And then there's this other part of sustainability that also requires visibility of supply chains, of responsible sourcing, ensuring that consumers want to know about all of it. It's no longer just want to make sure that my product is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Consumers understand the intersection of social justice, environmental justice, and want to ensure that the products that they're purchasing are aligned with their values. They're using their wallet as a ballot, and we're really proud to be offering some of the technologies, products, and solutions to help deliver on their sustainability values and your sustainability objectives and goals. So, Christine, I'm going to kick it back over to you. I'm really looking forward to the questions that you all send in. So thanks so much.
All right, great, Sasha. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone now over to Jen Nokovich from EcoWell. Jen, you're up.
Thanks, Christine. And for my part of the presentation, I'm going to be addressing sustainability-related perceptions. As Sasha had brought up in her part of this presentation, consumers are looking for more sustainable products, but more sustainable products based off of their perceptions. So common sustainability-related perceptions among consumers as well as in industry is that products that are natural, organic, or GMO-free will be inherently more sustainable, as well as zero waste and plastic-free. I'm only going to be addressing the ingredient side of this conversation, but just to put it out there, the conversation of waste and plastic is quite complex, and there are many shades of gray. Simple answers are just not quite right with respect to, for example, plastic. Just for your information, if we were to stop using all plastic packaging in favor of eco alternatives, just as an example, we would need 3.6 times the material, 2.2 times the energy, with an average increase of about 2.7 times the carbon dioxide emissions. So it's just not so simple of a discussion when deciding around plastic. But again, this conversation will be focused on ingredients. As Sasha had mentioned, greenwashing is on the rise. So according to results from the latest European Commission sweep for websites, they do this every year, but this year, 2021, it was focused on greenwashing. They found that in more than half of the cases, there was insufficient information for consumers to judge the claim's accuracy. In 37% of the cases, the claims included vague and general statements. For example, this product is clean or natural or green. In 59% of the cases, there was no easily accessible evidence to support the claim. Disclaimer, while there was a portion of the evidence, I think, 41% of the evidence had evidence. They weren't differentiating between evidence that may actually support sustainability initiatives. For example, a company might be substantiating natural. Now, whether natural actually means a product will be more eco-friendly is another conversation. In 42% of cases, authorities had reason to believe that the claim may be false or deceptive. To kick off, consumer perceptions around sustainability for groundwork on what do we mean when we say natural. I'll refer to the ISO standard 16128, which is a standard to attempt to harmonize terminologies around ingredient origin to define common language internationally. To paraphrase the standard, we have ingredients that are 100% natural. So these ingredients are essentially what is found in nature, where they have been physically extracted, for example, maybe through cold pressing or steam distillation or fermentation if it's something that happens in nature. Then we have naturally derived, where these ingredients are chemically modified to give a different end product. We have natural minerals. These are minerals found in nature, derived mineral, where they are, for example, nature identical, something like iron oxides. And then we have synthetic or non-natural. These are ingredients, or at least part of this definition is derived from the petroleum sector. Important, this standard does not consider product claims, safety, or sustainability. So coming back to the question, does natural mean more sustainable? Because that is a common perception. So in 2018, I believe, the UN IPBES did the greatest survey ever completed to assess biodiversity loss on Earth. And the findings from this study were that agriculture is the largest driver for biodiversity loss, which we are losing biodiversity at unprecedented rates. And that if we want to move forward in a sustainable way, we have to figure out how to do more with less. Ultimately, for the question, is natural sustainable? It's a case-by-case basis. From an environmental perspective, sometimes choosing synthetic has the lesser impact. An example can be seen through Simrise's menthol, where their production of their synthetic menthol produces 8 kilograms of carbon dioxide per kilogram yield, compared to 50 to 100 kilograms for its natural counterpart. Another example could be seen with things like essential oils, where it requires a lot of plant material to produce the end product. For example, with rose essential oil, we're talking in the ballpark of like 10,000 pounds of plant material for a single pound of the end product. Other crops, for example, sandalwood, which is on the screen here, take a long time to come to maturity, where we can actually extract an essential oil that will be viable for the fragrance sector. So even with the sustainable plantations, with the rise of the demand for aromatherapy, it's hard to see how this can actually be sustainable into the future using traditional natural extraction. And so there are many biotech companies that are rising to the challenge. An example here for sandalwood is through Firmenech's latest Dreamwood sandalwood, their biotech-derived sandalwood. Questions that I would personally ask when assessing whether a natural ingredient is a sustainable option, which, as Sasha had highlighted, this is incredibly complex. Mostly right now I am focusing on the environmental impact, but equally complex is the social aspect and the economic aspect. So my questions would be, was the material harvested for the sole intent of being used in cosmetics, or is it a byproduct from another industry? Because we know that the greatest impact for biodiversity is expansion of our agriculture. We also know, despite the fact that we have waste, it's not just a distribution issue. With our growing population, we know now that we have to produce more. And with that biodiversity impacts, we're going to have to produce more with less. So putting land just to produce cosmetic ingredients, it seems kind of counterproductive. when we can instead use byproducts from current industry, which happens a lot in the cosmetics industry. A few examples to highlight this are from BioForextra. In Canada, the bark from trees were traditionally burnt or buried. So to address this and to use the waste, BioForextra turned that into an extract, an antioxidant extract that is used now for the cosmetics industry. Givaudan has recently launched their Coffee Up, which was derived from spent coffee. And with Cargill's fiber design, they derived pectin from citrus waste. So these are just a few examples of waste being used in cosmetics, but there are so many other examples currently in use. Then the other question, does organic mean more sustainable? Now, this is a really big conversation, but as one example of the complexity is this study in Nature in 2018, assessing the efficiency of changes in land use for mitigating climate change. And their take-homes were that practices that require more land demonstrably have a higher CO2 emissions compared to other styles of agriculture. For example, organic peas farmed in Sweden had roughly a 50% higher climate impact than conventionally farmed peas, or for Swedish winter wheat, closer to 70%. And so not only does a higher land use for agriculture have a greater impact on biodiversity, it also has a larger impact on our carbon footprint. With respect to organic, it's not all bad. There are many advantages for organic agriculture, as with disadvantages similar to other styles of agriculture. While this form of agriculture might be best for a given region, it might not be viable in another. What I view, or I guess my perception around what organic certifications do, because they are defined by what they exclude, ultimately, this means that organic farmers have less flexibility to make the best decisions for their farms, whereas conventional farmers can use, because they do, organic tools. They also have tools like genetic engineering that might make their crops more resilient or might make them more efficient with less land, and we know that's important. And now to, is GMOs bad? Because there is this perception in industry, including with global certifications. And this is a perception that these free from claims, GMO free from the non-GMO project, may lead consumers and companies to perceive. So the body of evidence with respect to GMO overwhelmingly supports safety. It supports a potential to reduce the environmental burden of agriculture, the potential to improve nutrition quality. A good example of this could be seen with the golden rice, where they were able to fortify rice, which could have been with vitamin A, which could have been life-saving for many people in impoverished regions, who year over year die of vitamin A deficiency. Unfortunately, activists did get in the way of this technology, but that just highlights the potential to improve nutrition quality. And the potential to also improve farmer livelihood, especially smallholder farmers in impoverished regions. Like organic, genetic engineering is not a panacea, but it is one tool in the farmer's toolkit. How can genetic engineering help us do better? Well, I've already talked about the potential for example, producing more with less with agriculture. That's obviously very important. But with ingredient innovation, there are many examples of biotech companies using genetically engineered biocatalysts to efficiently produce their end products. And Brontide butylene glycol is a great example of this, where, as Sasha had already mentioned with their life cycle analysis, compared to traditional butylene glycol, they had a 51% carbon footprint reduction using this technology. So this is one example of how genetic engineering in cosmetics can help us produce better and less impactful ingredients. Other examples can be seen with, for example, Ginkgo Bioworks. They paired with Robertet to produce a rose fragrance. I had mentioned earlier that rose requires a lot of plant material to produce very little of the essential oil. And so this technology, or this innovation, has come about to meet that challenge? CEPIC has put out many biotech ingredients using genetic engineering, many algae, just as one example. Now, coming to the certifiers that are quite popular, I'm going to focus on Ecosyr Cosmos, who became one recently, and then EWG. So what are Ecosyr Cosmos core tenets? First, they're looking for environmentally friendly production and processing, and processes respecting also human health, as well as the development of the concept of green chemicals. Responsible use of natural resources, respect of biodiversity, absence of petrochemical ingredients except authorized preservatives, as well as parabens, phenoxyethanol, perfumes, and synthetic colorants, and the absence of GMOs. I think it's important to, there's actually one more slide, as well as recyclable packaging. Now, there are many things that I quite like about EcoCert. They demand accountability from the companies that they work with, for example, with year-over-year carbon footprint reductions for manufacturing, and that's something very, that's great to see companies actually taking the steps to start actually substantiating their sustainability with the certification, but they also don't allow things like GMOs. They don't allow ingredients that are demonstrably safe, that don't actually have evidence to support adverse environmental impacts yet, or good evidence at least. An example here, looking at this slide, could be parabens. The overwhelming body of evidence support that these ingredients are safe as used in cosmetics, and I have not seen compelling evidence to support the idea that they're destructive to the environment. So those are a few examples of how maybe the certification could be improved by growing with the emerging science. With Ecosyr Cosmos, you can be either Cosmos Natural or Cosmos Organic. So with Cosmos Natural, all the ingredients are from natural origin except the restricted approved ingredient list, including preservatives, authorized in small quantities. On average, EcoCert certified products contain 99% ingredients of natural origin. And then for Cosmos Organic, 95% minimum of the plants it contains are organic. At least 20% of organic ingredients are present in the total formula, or 10% for rinse-off formulas. So you can see the emphasis for the certification is on the product being natural, and better yet, the product being organic. But we have learned through this presentation that natural and organic are unfortunately not synonymous with sustainability. One other example of perhaps how the certification could improve, I mentioned it before, is the lack of approval for ingredients that have GMOs, for example, GMO-derived agricultural products or biotech ingredients that have genetically engineered biocatalysts. So unfortunately, Genomatica's Brontide butylene glycol didn't get, at least the last I've heard, the certification from Ecosyr Cosmos. So perhaps that's somewhere that they can improve to grow with the science that we know, at least the overwhelming body of evidence supports the idea that genetic engineering can be a force for good for the industry. It can be a frontier for green innovation. So I would like to see Ecosyr Cosmos growing with the evidence that we have. And then there's the EWG, which according to them, they are an American activist group that specializes in research and advocacy in areas of agricultural subsidies, toxic chemicals, drinking water, pollutants, and corporate accountability. Part of their certification, or part of the information I guess they put out, is the information they present through their Skin Deep database. So here is an example of an entry for their database looking specifically at parabens, where I had highlighted earlier in the presentation that the body of evidence supports safety and does not support as cause for concern. It may be one of the better preservatives that we have, at least with the level of evidence that we have, which is supported with this 2019 opinion review by the CIR, as well as the 2011 SCCS opinion on parabens, which they did cite but didn't include in their take-homes for whether parabens were estrogenic or carcinogenic. They also cite a potential for allergenicity, but I think looking at the fact that parabens actually win the non-allergen award of the year frequently by the American Contact Dermatitis, I'm not sure where they're coming from. So With respect to the legitimacy, with respect to the toxicology information that they put out, a decade ago, George Mason University surveyed about 1,000 members of the Society of Toxicology, and just about 80% of them felt that the EWG overstated the risks of chemicals. Communicating sustainability to the consumer. What I think that we can do better as an industry, as well as the certifications, instead of making assumptions around natural and organic ingredients being inherently better, like Sasha was mentioning earlier with the life cycle analyses, we should be looking for substantiation. Taking an evidence-based approach with respect to risky ingredients. An example here could be with parabens. Unless we actually know that there is a detrimental impact to us or the environment, then we should be following the evidence and not just looking to what consumers are pressuring the industry to do, and perhaps focusing on better science communication to consumers and accounting for the shades of gray that are just the reality. Improved sustainability in the cosmetic sector will require smart decisions on where we source materials, innovative approaches to be more resource efficient, collaboration between industries, transparency in supply chain, mindful packaging solutions. We need to grow with the science and be willing to change our opinions. To end this presentation, I just want to highlight the fact that sustainability is a moving target. It's not something that we're going to ever really land on. It's something that we're always going to be striving towards. As we know more, we can do better, and progress is the enemy of perfection. Thank you so much for including me in this presentation. And with that, I'll give the mic back to Christine.
Okay, Jen, thank you so much for a great presentation. Sasha, thank you so much for yours. I would love to dig into some of the questions that we've had come in. Are you both ready?
Yes.
Sure am.
Okay, great. So our first question is, why do we think sustainability is here to stay rather than just a trend or a fad?
All right. I can take this one if you want. Why is sustainability here to stay? I really love this question. We've seen over, I'll kind of take it to two directions. The first is the idea that sustainability has never been a trend. It's built off of this idea that in order to live on a habitable planet, we need to treat our planet and the people on it responsibly. And so I think that that trend and kind of that wisdom has been here for generations across different communities and is here to stay. I think what we're really noticing is a shift in awareness in markets and in consumer behavior, as well as citizen action and advocacy, demanding that the water that they drink, the air that they breathe, the roads that they're driving on, the food that they're putting in their bodies, the products that their kids or family or loved ones are using are safe and are not made in a way that's completely pushing for the destruction of the planet. And so with that, I think sustainability kind of both ideologically and then rationally is really critical for us as a way to think about how can we live on a habitable planet moving forward that's healthier for all. And so that high-level answer, I want to also come to, this is not just a trend that consumers are enjoying and it's, you know, here to come and go. We really believe that sustainability is beyond just a trend with benefits. So what that looks like is we're seeing across all different markets, especially in the investor space, so environmental social governance investors are thinking about how we can strategically invest in companies that are purpose-driven, putting planet and people first, because they know that consumers are demanding those products. They want to be using them. They want them in their homes, and they don't want to purchase products that are made in ways that are harmful to both people and the planet. And so funds that have been include sustainable products are outperforming non-sustainable products. Investors are seeing it. Consumers are demanding it. It's really this moment, a pivotal moment in the market that no longer sustainability is proving itself of this is important. We should be thinking this way. Consumers are wanting this. The market has already spoken and these brands are outperforming. So sustainability is a critical tool to think about the resiliency of our businesses, how we can stay around for longer to be viable, and to think about sustainable economic development long into the future as well. So kind of hit the product, people, planet, as well as investor and brand performance piece. And all the research shows, as well as kind of what we're seeing with our partners. I'm seeing a lot of our awesome brands and partners and formulators on this call in the personal care and beauty space, is that the demand for sustainability is just continuing to explode. And so we're really excited to be supporting and accelerating that evolution.
Okay. All right, great. Sasha, thank you so much for that answer. Our next question that came in is, if an ingredient is natural, isn't it also sustainable even without a life cycle assessment?
So ultimately to this question, it's a case-by-case basis. Sometimes natural ingredients are the less environmentally impactful or more sustainable option, and sometimes they're not. I gave a few examples of essential oils where essential oils in nature, again, case-by-case basis, can require an immense amount of resources to produce these ingredients. Alternatively, we can produce these ingredients in the limited space of a bioreactor and produce them with significantly less resources, or even via petrochemicals. Sometimes that avenue demonstrably has a lower impact. Important to the conversation of petroleum, which I think is often missed in these conversations, is we don't source any petroleum for the sole use of producing cosmetic ingredients. In cosmetics, we only use byproducts. And of course, as a society, we need to move away from petroleum sourcing, but we shouldn't fall into traps of perceived sustainability when we're deciding that essential oils are going to be more sustainable than fragrance. We need to actually go and assess it. So the only way we can actually have confidence in the sustainability of it is with assessment. Life cycle analyses are a good start. Ultimately, with this question, origin of material tells us nothing about the sustainability, but also the efficacy or safety of these ingredients. And with that, I give that back to Christine. Sorry.
Great, and that was perfect. Thank you so much. So our next question then is going to be, do you know of some examples of how brands can take an ingredient sustainability claim and translate that into product marketing?
Jen, why don't you take this one?
So something that I really like to see is when brands look at substantiation to actually communicate their results in the form of things like life cycle analyses. As Sasha had mentioned throughout the presentation, more and more companies are doing this. As I mentioned earlier with my last answer, origin of ingredient doesn't really tell us much about the sustainability. So if we actually want to show that we're doing better, then substantiate it. So communicating the results from the ingredient supplier substantiation, because many ingredient suppliers such as Genomatica have done life cycle analyses to substantiate their sustainability claims, you can communicate that. You could also take the time to do a life cycle analysis on your finished product, talk about the recyclability of your product. So that's something that I think that companies can do more of to translate sustainability claims into marketing.
Okay, great. I'm going to pull up another question. All right, so this listener wants to know, they say, our brand has been committed to sustainable packaging and now we're looking into more sustainable ingredients. And they'd like to know, what do you recommend for next steps?
Awesome. I'll take this one. Well, super happy to hear you're already on sustainable packaging and thinking about integrating in more sustainable ingredients and formulas. So I'd say keep going is the first step. And what's really helpful when you're on this journey, I just came from the brand side, so very much understand navigating, kind of exploring new possibilities for how to integrate more sustainable options, is look at the formulas that you're currently, your top SKUs, your top products. where do you want to see shifts in your portfolio? When you get really clear on the amounts of ingredients that you're using, maybe you do a deep dive of all of your top formulas, ingredients sold by volume, and you see that, wow, the top ingredients that we use are fossil fuel derived. They're not aligned with our values. Maybe they're not responsibly sourced palm. It's really helpful to take a gut check and do some inventory of how are our current ingredients and formulas performing. And then from there, reach out to partners in the space who have been doing this work and make it easy for you. You already have enough on your plate formulating, doing all of this, doing all of the back-end work to bring products to market. So partner with organizations, groups, thought leaders, companies who are doing the heavy lifting on the back end, substantiating for you, and are committed to being your partner through the process. That's something that attracted me to Genomatica and to this biotech space. Is there's a lot of innovation, collaboration, and really great work moving forward. So with many of our personal care and beauty clients, we've been producing Brontide natural butylene glycol for at-scale commercial for over 3 years. And what we do is when a customer will come to us, we'll say, where and how can we integrate this in to your portfolio and help you tell the story? So not just, selling products, but how can we really partner with you to understand where and how you have an impact in your portfolio? So similar to the LCAs you'd be running with your sustainable packaging, the materials, the types of resins or glass or aluminum that you've been putting your products into, taking a look underneath the hood, seeing what's in your formulas, working with partners to maximize your impact while reducing the lift that you need to do on your side. So those would be some of my top recs looking forward.
Okay, great. Sasha, thank you so much. I think that's going to be our final question that we're going to be able to answer today. We definitely covered a lot of territory on a complicated subject. And I just want to let our listeners know that you're going to be able to access this webinar for 1 year on HAPPI.com. So you can go back in and look at the slides and listen to all of our great speakers again and hear from those experts that we had online today. You can also reach out to the team at Genomatica, and they will definitely get back to you with any kind of help that they have. And I would like to thank our speakers, Sasha Calder and Jen Nokovich. Again, thank you so much. And I would also like to thank our sponsors, Genomatica. And from all of us here at the HAPPI team, thank you so much for attending and listening in, and have a great rest of your day.